Hello, welcome to High Tales with the Lit Sisters. I'm Marisa.
I'm Nicole.
And welcome!
We are on the third book of the series, A Court of Wings and Ruin, and this is our second of 4 episodes.
Because this is a long book.
This is a very long book.
To do it justice, frankly, I think we could have done 5 or 6 episodes.
We probably could have.
Because the last half of the book, it's going to be jam-packed with...
It really is.
With a lot of activity. You know what we always start off with?
Yeah.
It is our bonding moment, shall we say, where we will do some stuff.
Enlighten our minds
while we discuss our initial reactions of this second part of the book.
Okay.
And I do think I enlightened my mind last episode, so I think you get dibs. First dibs.
At that.
I'm very respectful. So
she respects her elders.
While Nicole is enlightening her mind, let me just catch you up on where we were. I'm going to do this in 2 sentences. Feyre fucked up Tamlin's shit. She said, you double-cross her. You sold out everybody to the King of Highburn, including my sisters.
Yeah.
You're going down.
I was impressed by her treachery.
Yes, she played the double agent, and she played it so flippin' well.
She played the High Lady of the Night Court, is what she played. I mean, she is like Rhys's double,
yes.
You know, in every sense of the word in this first part. To the point I almost kind of felt bad for Tamlin. A little bit. Not a lot. There were small moments where I felt myself kind of going, "Aw."
And I mean...
But not really.
No, I'm still mad.
Probably felt more bad for Lucien than I did.
Yes, I actually feel very bad for Lucien. So, Lucien has his mate in the night court. So he comes with Feyre. They finally see the sisters. Mm-hmm. Now the second part of the book is when it gets to the juiciness of like, oh shit, what are we going to do with Highburn? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I got my revenge. Now what do we do about the real problem?
Now let's talk about the real problem at hand, which is an impending war.
Yes. I was catty for a second. Now I'm past it.
Yeah.
Let's move on. So war prep is basically it's a lot of the politics around war.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the next 2 episodes, well, the next 3, right? It's the war prep and then...
The war.
The war. Dun, dun, dun.
Spoiler alert. Was that a spoiler alert? That now we know there is a war. Okay. If there is a war.
Maybe. Hypothetically speaking.
They're preparing for a possible war.
Where there's smoke, there's fire, though. So maybe there'll be a war at the end of this.
Who knows? Okay.
Wait and see.
So what was your favorite new character? Because Feyre is always my favorite character as of right now. Actually, it's kind of shifted a little bit. But your character that you really wanted to be more involved in the story, the second part.
It's going to be weird to say this, but I love it when she goes to see the bone carver.
Yeah.
I find him like creepy and intriguing and almost endearing a little bit. So anytime the bone carver or like the surreal are going to be in a part of a book, those are my favorite parts.
You love the surreal.
I love the surreal. But I would say the bone carver. I also would say, and I don't want to give anything away. So
then don't.
But also I feel like there's some events in here, I've said this before, where my opinion of someone kind of shifts a little bit. Like you get a little bit more of the 500 years that Feyre hasn't been a part of these grown Fae men's lives. But you get a little peek in the back and you're like, oh, maybe they're not so bad. Maybe they're not so bad. So there's also an event in this part of the book that makes me think a little bit.
Yeah. So I would say not my favorite character, because you guys know who my favorite character always is.
Yeah.
But the one that I'm like, I just want to read more about these folks, I would say the Archeron sisters, because Elaine is Elaine, very Elaine-y.
Yeah.
And Nesta is so deadpan and not scared of shit. And so
They're so different from each other, aren't they?
It's so interesting to picture them as little humans, but then they say like the most forthright things because they don't know the context of what they're asking, or I think Nesta does.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, why didn't anybody just say it like that?
It is very interesting to see. There's 3 women here that are now High Fae, all entering this brand new world that they had all these misconceptions about, and now they're a part of it, and how differently all 3 of them have gone through that process.
Yes.
Very different. And how even then just Elaine and Nesta, polar opposites of each other, how they can do the same trauma of like being dunked into a cauldron, and how they're seeing this world now and their reactions to it.
Well, and can we say, no offense to Nesta and Elaine.
Uh-huh.
I love them.
Yeah.
But their trauma compared to Feyre's trauma, Feyre worked through that shit pretty quick. Like,
well, okay, let's keep it real. Like, they were kidnapped in the middle of the night, put in front of a bunch of people, dunked into a cauldron. Elaine was like, found out something about a mate right away. I mean, their experience was a little more traumatic, where Feyre was like taken to a pretty castle.
I disagree, because she was stolen. And yes, she was a prisoner in this castle.
Not really, though.
And then she had to go through 3 trials, and she literally died.
Okay. Well, when you put it that way.
So it's one of those things where I'm like...
Where the girls went straight to Valeris.
I understand the trauma.
Yeah.
But look at your other sister, and please respect that she went through trauma. She
now,
can't clean up all
I'm not going
to
lie. I feel a little bit guilty that I poo-pooed on Feyre's experience.
I mean, that's very Nesta of you. Okay. So apologies. We talked a little bit too long about that, but again, we were enlightening our minds aggressively. So let's get into it, okay? Obviously, Feyre was double agent spy. Mm-hmm. So she has to download this, the Court of Dreams, as they're called, to tell them everything that happened. And so as she goes through, she does talk about the monologue that the twins did when they thought, you know.
The monologue.
I love the villain monologue in this book. And it's so ridiculous, but I love it.
Yeah.
So the twins let it go that they've got 3 really, really big. They've got Rask, they've got Monterese, they've got Valahan. Again, we know somebody needs to do the audiobooks.
Someone is losing their shit right now on how we're mispronouncing everything.
Please be nice to us, trolls. We're really trying.
Well, don't call them trolls.
Please be nice to us, people who are mean online. Okay. We find out that they have allies. And frankly, the Highburn army in and of itself is huge.
Way bigger than theirs.
If you look at the island at the very beginning, like the Highburn Island is fairly big in comparison to everything else.
Yeah.
And then you pull in these other allies. So they're like, well, shit, we're screwed. We need to come up with a plan. She also knows that they are looking at cracks in the wall, because that's the whole reason that the twins came from Highburn.
Right.
And so now they know there's something with the cracks in the wall. The cauldron's not strong enough, so it has to do these cracks.
Right.
And so now they're like, okay, we've got to figure out a way to seal the wall in all these cracks. So they've got bullet points. I wouldn't even call it a plan. They've got meanderings of an idea for a plan.
That's kind of what's going on. Like, we're trying to figure out what's happening. They already knew about the potential allies, right? Which makes sense, right? That Highburn would go to the other Fae territories. And I love that Az is like, yeah, I already took care of it. I'm just like gossiping and like making them all get worried about themselves so they don't look at us. And they're like, solid plan, Az.
Yeah. So Az is on it.
And
in true Reese fashion, he's like, oh, I thought that was what it was.
Which does do that a lot.
He does. Which also makes me think, like, that's a trick I'm going to totally start pulling. Where it's like, I thought, but I really just wanted you to confirm, so I didn't say anything out of turn. Okay. We've got ideas. We go to dinner. Imagining this dinner is very funny because, first of all, we've got Lucien, who the last time he talked to Reese, I'm pretty sure he called him Amarantha's whore.
A couple times.
Yeah. So, not a good relationship there. We've got Amryn, who's just scary in and of herself. Moore, who's like dancing around chipper. Like, how much Prozac have you had? And then all of the Bat Boys. And you have Nesta, who's just deadpan.
Yeah.
Elaine, who, she breaks my heart here. And maybe this is because I really think I am Elaine in the story. Person that hides and cries and everybody's like, oh, Elaine. She is very sad.
Yeah.
Just sitting in the corner sad.
I don't even think she does dinner. I think they like see her and she just goes to her room or something, doesn't she? Like for the majority of this dinner that they're going to debrief, engaged. I think she just leaves.
Yeah. And so everybody's dressed in whatever they feel comfortable. It definitely reminds me of that first dinner that Feyre was in, where she's like, damn it, I wish I wouldn't have worn this dress.
She felt the way I think most women do going into a social engagement with new people.
Like,
where you're
what do I wear?
What do I wear, guys? And then you're always like, oh, am I going to be too dressed down or too dressed up? And that's,
Yes. And, like, Lucian's sitting there in his, like, formal wear because this is the court's dinner. Yeah. And even when it was just him and Tamlin, he dressed in his formal wear because that's how Tamlin is. And he, like, looks around and he's like, Amren's in basically pajamas. You're wearing, like, Illyrian leathers. Okay. And Lucian's just like, what is the dress code here?
And granted, this is all so new to him.
Yeah.
Right? The place he's hated forever.
He grew up in a very formal court.
Yeah.
He was emissary in a
formal court. Yeah. And for 500 years, he's hated these people. And they're like, someone's in their pajamas. Someone else is in a flashy dress.
So very interesting, casual. Nesta is just being Nesta. She's just like looking at Amren and being like, why are your eyes like that?
Yeah, why do your eyes glow? And I like how Amren's like, no one's ever asked me that before.
Yeah. Nobody's had the balls to ever look at me in the face and say, who are you? What are you? But Nesta will.
But she answers all of her questions.
Oh, yeah.
I found that exchange to be super interesting.
Yeah.
Right? Where it was just like, why do your eyes glow? No one's ever asked me that. This is why they glow. And it's like, how come no one's ever asked you that? And she's like, they're too afraid. And frankly, it's kind of fucking rude, Nesta. And Nesta's like, all right. And she just keeps asking.
Yep.
She ain't afraid.
She is not. So they come up with the final bullet points of this quote-unquote plan. Mm-hmm. And it's find allies.
Yeah, if Hybern's going to have allies, we need to all be together, at least on our island, right? Yeah.
And we need to fix the wall.
With the wall, it's like if Hybern is trying to shatter it, and the twins had mentioned they were finding the cracks so the cauldron could read what was happening, and Amren's like, the cauldron doesn't need to do that, so there's something wrong with the cauldron then. Maybe we can patch the holes.
Yeah.
Before then, maybe you guys can patch the wall so the cauldron doesn't have anything to read and they can't shatter it in the first place.
Awesome. Bullet point 1.
Yeah.
That sounds like a solid plan. Second, we need to get Kerr and the Darkbringers. And that was really interesting to me as part of this whole Court of Dreams, Valeris, keeping this huge secret, like this 2-court Court of Nightmares situation that Rhys has, but way before
his ancestors established this.
Multiple ancestors ago established this. The leader of the Court of Nightmares, which is Mor's dad, Kerr, he can say yes or no on whether or not he supports a war.
Yeah.
So he seriously lives like an almost separate entity.
Right.
All Rhys can say is pretty please. Now he's got to go grovel to the person that he just like
Rhys don't grovel. He don't grovel.
But he broke the shit out of every part of his arm.
Yeah. I don't think Rhys cares. I don't think he's worried about that interaction.
I would be. I'm anticipating it being awkward, but I understand.
Why don't you just go back to the Spring Court, Marissa?
If you're the most powerful being in history, I understand why maybe that wouldn't make you nervous. It would make me nervous. And then find allies abroad. Lucian's like, elephant in the room.
Like, yeah, he doesn't talk through all of this. And he's like, hey, by the way, I would like to say something real quick.
Warning, my dad's definitely going to try to murder Feyre.
Yeah, are you going to hide those powers? Because I'm not saying that's a good plan. We just came from Tamlin, and we know that's, like, not what we want to do here, but my dad will, like, kill her to get that little sliver of power back.
And they're like, no, he won't know. And he's like, my oldest brother, Eris, is kind of a dick.
And my 2 other brothers saw it.
More you remember. He's a dick. And so they saw her do ice. There's nobody...
And fire.
But she was like, but he might have thought that was your fire, Lucien. And he's like, but what about the ice?
What about the ice?
Yeah.
What about the refreezing what Eris was melting?
And it's like, thank you, Lucien.
Yeah.
Good point. Now you get to spend all day tomorrow with Azrael.
Which Az was super pumped about.
And so is Lucien.
Yeah.
Which is funny because...
But again, you guys work together. Figure out what Baron knows.
Yeah.
What does he know?
Yes. So
now Lucian's getting to be a part of the team.
I'm not going to
lie. Well, when it happened, though, I'm like, here's the end. I always thought Lucien would be boys with all these guys.
I do think their personalities mesh.
Yeah.
My initial thought when I read that was him and the Adder. Like, he is going to interrogate the crap out of Lucien. Like, congratulations, Lucien. Now you get to be interrogated by Azrael.
I feel like you're afraid all the time.
Okay.
I did not think of that at all.
It's called anxiety. Welcome to 2024.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's tough, man.
That's my life.
I did not think for a second Az would torture Lucien.
Well, I didn't think he was going to torture him, but it wasn't going to be a pleasant conversation. It was going to be like a police interrogation.
No, I was like, they're going to be boys. They're going to go to Rita's down the street and do karaoke.
That's not Az's way, man. He's too formal for that. Okay.
Moore is super uncomfortable by this too.
Yes.
Once they decide, like, okay, we're going to go to Kerr, that means she's like, he's not going to help you guys. She doesn't want to be involved with her dad at all.
Yeah.
And tension is thick right now. Mm-hmm. So Feyre's like, hey guys, guess what? I'm going to distract everybody, and I think I want to learn to fly. The reason they think it's so hard too is that it's much more complicated. Like, Illyrians learn how to fly from the moment they're babies. Like, it's like learning to walk, right? At 21 years old, basically. Yeah. And I like how Az was like, I'll teach you.
Yeah.
Even though Cassian's like, I'm way better of a flyer, dude.
Well, and he's like, I taught you, man.
And Reese is like, you guys are going to have to like hold my girl. I think I'll teach her. No, I'm going to teach her. And Az is like, no, I'm going to, because he knows what it's like to learn how to fly.
Yeah, I think he's like, talks about how it's like, you don't understand how to fly when you're afraid.
Yeah.
It's not instinctual.
It's exactly how I felt about learning how to ski at 30.
Yeah, that's tough.
Like, Derek's like, just bomb down the hill. And I'm like, that sounds miserable.
Yeah.
And I might die.
That's why I'm a hottie toddy person, but I don't drink. So I guess I'm
hot cocoa.
I'm a hot cocoa person.
In the lounge.
Because I skied once, I wiped out once, and I never did it again. And I'm too old for that now.
Too old
to learn. Another thing that I thought was interesting is Feyre talking to Reese and being like, I don't feel comfortable contradicting you in front of people or disagreeing with you in front of people.
Yeah, because he'd said something about Nesta and she was like, watch it.
Yeah.
Not exactly like that. And then the whole dinner interaction, I forgot about this. The whole dinner interaction, she was like, oh, he's upset with me, I think. Yeah. Oh, he's not saying this.
Maybe Feyre has anxiety disorder because, you know what? She was in her head a little bit.
I think you might have diagnosed her.
Actually, I think that's trauma from, like, Tamlin being a jerk. Controlling jerk.
Which results in anxiety.
But I also think that this is a disagreement that most parents have about disagreeing with each other in front of the kids. How do you teach, your kids how to have a disagreement, have differing views, and reach resolution without contradicting or
each other, maybe.
This was an interesting interaction, and I wish that parents had the solution that Feyre and Reese came up with, which was, if I'm ever questioning something that you're saying or if I disagree, I'm just going to do it in the mind.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be amazing. And so I can just be like, hey, honey, like, maybe that's a little rough. Maybe we shouldn't take away our phone for 3 years.
I'd pay a lot of money for that. Okay. I do like that he confirmed to her, no, we're family. In front of family, you need to challenge me. That's the whole reason we're together, babe.
And so I got to start training again. I want to fly. Let's put a schedule together. Cassian's like, meet me at dawn. And she's like, nah, that's cool, man. How about 10? I think they ended at 9 or something, but they start training. So that first day back, she's like, okay, let's go. And she's like, which sword do I grab? And he's like, nothing. You are conditioning today because you haven't worked out in only 6 weeks. She was gone 6 weeks. And he's like, you are out of shape AF.
Yeah.
And she's trying to joke with him like they normally do and stuff. And he is pissed.
Yeah, he's not having it.
She's just like, what's going on? Why are you so angry? And he's like, you lied to us about being a high lady.
Yep.
And she's like, well, you didn't need to know.
Yeah. And he's like, no, it changes everything.
And she's like, it's still just me. We're you knew we were mated. This is no different. And he said, the difference is you were his and we protected you as his mate. Now you are all of ours, as are we high to lady. You.
Yeah.
Because we serve you as our high lady. Mm-hmm. That would have changed how we did everything.
Yeah.
And she was like, it shouldn't have changed because that would needed to be the plan. And he's like, yes, but that's information we needed to know.
Right.
Yeah.
And it all came back to, he was like, you don't think you're essential? Like, you're sacrificable, which is also why he was mad at Rhys about Under the Mountain.
Oh, yeah.
And all of them were.
Yeah.
Because you two think that you're not essential. You are essential. We're the ones who are supposed to. It was another thing that made me go, oh, Cassie.
Yes.
I love Cassie.
And I love that he was just like, I already had it out with Rhys. Now it's your turn. Like, you know, like, I love the relationship. I love his, like, dedication to her.
He is very much a big brother, for sure. So Cassian kicks her ass.
Kicks her ass. She actually goes to the library.
Yeah, they're trying to research how to patch holes in the wall. Like, how would we even do this?
Yes. And so it turns out the library is actually the, like, bottom basement part of the House of Wind.
Yes.
And so they
Tell me what you pictured when you were reading this, because I have very vivid...
I picture, like the underground caves in Missouri. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, with the stalactites.
Oh, God, I'm so glad you said that. I was going to try and I was going to butcher it.
So you know what's crazy? I don't know why I picture it this way. But when you first walk in, I picture almost like an atrium. Mm-hmm. Clotho is sitting at the front desk, and then you go down beside her, and then it just keeps rotating.
Spiraling. Like a big spiral.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's only women in the library.
Priestesses.
And they're all priestesses who were treated poorly in their past. And so Clotho doesn't speak.
Right.
If you look at her hands are all disfigured.
Well, and Feyre never really sees her face. Like, it's not that it's not there, it's that it's, like, covered up.
Yes. And, like, she just, like, writes with her, like, crippled hand.
Right.
And that's how she communicates. And then Feyre finds out, like, through the mind with Rhys, the reason why her hands are still disfigured is because they healed it every time. They would break it, heal it, break it, heal it.
Heal it just enough that it wouldn't.
So, just... These women were tortured. They are a little skittish. But Rhys comes here sporadically just to get away. This is one of his getaway spots.
So what I love, you said the mind talking, right? He's telling her the story of Clotho in their minds. And I love how they're picking up on this mind talking thing a lot more in this book.
Yes.
Like, there is a lot of banter back and forth, mind to mind.
Can I say that they are totally going to be the twins in 1,000 years? Where they're just, like, mates walking around and, like, don't talk to anybody.
They have these weird looks on their face.
Yeah, and they're just, like, having full-on conversations.
And everyone knows what's going on. And they call him out on it, too. All of the guys.
But after 1,000 years of doing that, wouldn't you just be like, it's not worth the effort of opening my mouth?
Right. Or it's kind of like if me and you knew a different language in front of outsiders, we would talk in that other language so they wouldn't know what we were saying to themselves and not anybody else.
Yes.
It's a little creepy. Anyways.
No,
but
cool.
In the mind-to-mind thing, he also tells her that he gave this library to all the priestesses. Meaning, like, it's in his home, mind you. It's in the basement.
Yeah.
But he wanted them to feel safe. So they came here, and no one can enter unless they want them there. Yeah. Even Rhys.
No, Rhys gets to go. And now so does Feyre.
But everyone except for...
No, I like that. It's like a safe spot for them.
Yes. It shows you, again, more of Rhys, right? Like the nobility part of him.
So Clotho got a bunch of books related to the wall, and they're doing research and stuff, and they actually almost try to do it in this poor library with skittish priestesses around. They're probably so scared.
I didn't even think of that part.
Yes.
But they could put, like, you know, shields on stuff and everything.
They didn't. They just started, like, grinding on each other, and then finally Rhys, like, winnowed to a different area. Different floor. So that way he could concentrate. Young love.
He's 500 years old.
Okay. Again, we can't judge a man by his age, evidently.
Age ain't nothing but a number, apparently.
In the researching,
nothing is documented on how to do this. But they don't have our monsters. Maybe we can get some monsters on our side.
Yes. And who is the monster of choice these days?
Well, she's like,
yes,
let's go talk to the bone carver and see if he, wants to fuck some shit up in a war.
Yes.
And Cassian's like, I want to go with.
I'll come.
No, he doesn't really volunteer, but he was.
He was voluntold.
And
so they walk down to the bone carver. We know Feyre actually connects the fact that this little boy that she pictures is actually her and Rhys's son.
Yeah. She notices the eyes. She notices what I think she said it's her mouth.
Yeah.
And her mom's mouth.
Yeah.
And she puts the connection together. And I love how the bone carver knows she puts it together, too.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, now you see it, don't you?
Yeah. I also wonder what the heck Cassian saw, because we don't talk about it.
He never says, but he's obviously affected by it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I want to know what he sees, but spoiler alert, not spoiler alert.
We don't find out.
We don't find out.
We never find out. Yet.
Well, hopefully. Come on, Sarah J. Maas.
Yeah, I mean, there's more books coming out, so you never know. Maybe
Actually, there might be some fan fiction about what. I'll Google it. I'll chat GPT it.
Chat GPT.
Okay. And so they're down by the bone carver. The bone carver is like, okay, what you want? And she's like, hey, if we can get you out of this prison, can you fight a war with us? And we can free you, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, actually, funny story is, I'm not actually imprisoned here. I'm hiding. And this is so funny because
I don't want to leave.
No, this is my home.
Yeah. And then it's like, who are you hiding from?
Yeah. He's actually hiding from his family.
We find out they're old gods.
They're older than Amryn. Yes.
Prithian.
Yes.
Right.
And we find out that the bone carver has a twin who's actually the weaver.
Right. And we find out because he's like, I can smell my sister on you. Because of her ring that she stole.
That's still weird.
I don't think I could sniff out a ring of yours on somebody else.
The next time I see you in public, I'm going to be like, I thought I smelt my sister.
Or like when you borrow something of mine, I'd be like, I smell my shirt.
Okay. So we find out her name is Striga.
Her actual real name.
Yes. And then they have a brother, Koshi. And they are all three death gods. And the fact that the carver, who is like this monster that she's like, if we have this one guy, we're going to win the war.
Yeah.
Is actually scared, hiding in a prison for eternity.
From the other two.
Yes.
Well, and they're both bound. Like, so the Weaver was bound to the middle, and Koshi was bound to a frozen lake. So they wouldn't hurt the High Lords.
And the bone carver just imprisoned himself.
Yeah.
The only thing he wants, he doesn't want to be free. He's like, I want a window to the world. And there's this thing called an Ouroboros. Well, it's a mirror. Let's just call it a mirror from now on.
The mirror.
And we find out that Kerr has it. And they're like, well, good news, bad news. Good news is we're already going to go to Kerr and ask him for a favor.
Yeah.
Bad news is he was barely going to give us one, and now we're going to have to ask him for two.
She's like, I'll figure it out, though. That's what you want.
We got it.
Yeah.
Now we know. And they come back from the prison. They come into the house, and Elaine says a bunch of crazy things again.
Elaine, during this whole part of the book, anytime she's coming in, all I think of is, remember in Hunger Games, tick tock, and they're all like, oh poor you, she's going crazy, she's traumatized.
Nesta and
Feyre like look at each other.
They do like the like nudge like head thing, like, oh, let's go over here.
I heard someone drop a book. We'll be right back, Elaine. We'll be right back.
And so she puts like this shield and is like, what are we gonna do about that? Like, she's going a little crazy, right?
Yeah. And Nesta's like, she's been talking in those half riddles all day.
Yeah, I cannot get her to stop. And so they have this shield around them. Nobody can hear them or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And Lucien comes walking in, which, first of all, this is against the rules.
Breaking the law. How dare you want a book?
Rhys said you have to stay on your floor, but Lucien strolls in, and he actually looks a little shocked because I don't think he was expecting Elaine.
Yeah.
Feyre was like pissed and nervous and she actually goes into Lucien's mind.
Yeah.
She's already done that once to Lucien. Actually, she's done it twice, because in their dreams...
She's done it twice and said she wasn't going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Either.
But Lucien kind of owes her because he was a shitty friend for so long.
True story. I also love that she did, because she hears his, real intentions.
And his intentions is, she looks so sad. She looks so skinny. She needs to eat. He's just genuinely worried about her.
And afraid of Nesta.
And he actually actually was like, oh, I didn't expect to see Elaine. I expected, like, the bitch sister.
Like, that one. I could call it that one.
Yes.
Oh, I love how he also says in his mind how Valaris is what he thought the Spring Court was going to be. Like, you hear him liking these people.
Yeah.
And liking the city.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
Well, it goes back to the first thing he said in Valaris was, there's kids.
I can hear kids laughing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Lucian's gonna be part of the team. Lucian's gonna be part of the team.
We can only hope.
Yeah, right?
But Lucien, like, finally Feyre comes out, and Nesta immediately was like, have you ever done that to me? Like, you went in his
Nesta
brain.
knew before she could tell her.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Yes. And Feyre's like, oh, shit, somebody got me. I already said I wasn't going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
But they come out of their shield.
Yes.
And so everybody smells and hears them and stuff. And they're kind of like, Lucien, what are you doing in here? And Lucien's just like, Elaine needs to get out more.
Yeah.
Like, this is not looking good. So
what did she say to him? She said, I can hear your heart beating all the time. Can you hear mine?
He's like, no. Awkward. Hey, she needs to get out more.
You need to get her outside for
Yes.
some fresh air.
Yes.
And then Feyre's like, that's it. We're packing up shop.
Yes.
We're all going to the townhome.
I am so happy that she made this decision.
Agreed.
Because they were just so isolated up there. But it is also funny that Lucien comes with them. Like, Lucien could have stayed up there.
10,000 steps down. You just stay right up here.
You're fine.
Don't worry your pretty little head
No, come
about
to
it.
my very small townhouse.
Yeah.
I mean, small in our terms, not small in high.
I mean, I guess
terms.
that's true. It's probably a pretty large house the way they describe it, that there's
Yes.
just all these extra rooms.
Yes.
But it is like the very personal place,
Yes.
you know?
So Feyre comes down with Cassian.
Mm-hmm.
Rhys takes Nesta.
Yeah.
And evidently, Nesta...
When they land, Nesta's so pissed.
Her face is like green and she's about to puke.
Uh-huh.
And Rhys was like, what? She told me I was going slow, so I went faster. And Cassian's pissed. He's like, she'll never fly now, you jerk.
You dick. You're such a dick. And Rhys is like, whatever.
Nesta is so mad that, like, literally flames are going in her eyes. And
Yeah. And I love how Cassian just, like, dips it. He's like, hey, guess what? Funny story. I got kicked out of this place for a while for starting a fight with Amryn, so you might just want to chill out. It totally works, though. She stops.
And then Lucien says, what are you?
I just totally picture it exactly the way you said it.
Which is rude, Lucien.
It is rude, but I mean, I was imagining it like that because they were saying like her eyes were on fire. You could see the death, the intensity. She was so pissed.
Yeah.
And Cassian like kind of breaks that and she's a little more back to normal. And this is when she busts out, I made it give something back about the cauldron.
And Feyre's like, yeah, she's definitely a death god.
No, she does the line, only Nesta would not just conquer death, but pillage it.
Okay, so now they have to go and ask for curs, Deathbringers, and this mirror that we can't pronounce.
Correct. And this is the first time Feyre is going back
High Lady.
as the High Lady.
Yes.
So they have kind of a talk about like what is that supposed to look like, because she kind of played as whore.
Yeah.
The first time around, right?
And Kerr called it out and then got his hand crippled.
Right. But this entrance into the Court of Nightmare, I loved it. So they're walking in. Look at us in their mask. Basically.
And everything's like bored. Our faces are bored.
You guys, we're so above you guys. Like, I don't even really see you
These
at all.
minions.
Yeah, with all the siphons and everything like that.
There's only one throne.
Uh-huh.
And Rhys like just sits her on the throne. Everybody goes, oh!
And he sits like on the arm.
He sits on the arm and he's like, I'm assuming because we didn't give you enough warning, that's why there's not 2 chairs here. Instead of like...
Well, no, and I love he adds, he's like, I won't peel your skin or fillet your skin or something crazy like that.
That's my mating gift.
As my gift to you guys.
You're welcome.
I love it.
Yes. So they make a great first impression and then they're like, hey, Kerr, let's go talk in the back.
Yeah, well, okay, but before that, people like tried to reach their power out to her.
Yes.
While she's sitting on the throne.
And she feels their powers coming. Like people are trying to like come and like just test her.
Poke her.
Yeah. And she's like, okay, I'll let him go. They just act like I don't even notice. And then she sees a couple of them getting really close and she's like, this is how I do it. And she grabs a hold of them. And so there's like 4 or 5 people in the room. They're like, ah!
You know, like, screaming. Yeah.
Yeah. So she knows exactly who it is. And she's just like twisting it and everything like that. And then, like, she lets them go.
Yeah. And she's like, bitches, I'm high lady for a reason. I love how she just, like, played with them.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, one person winnows away right away when she, like, releases the magic from them that she has on them. That was so, like, badass bitch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now we have this backroom meeting with most of the Court of Dreams and Kerr. Everybody's sitting there.
Well, Kerr first starts out and he's like, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm a little sympathetic to Hybern. I kind of understand how we're both trapped.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trapped here. He's trapped on that island. I don't know, Rhys.
And
I don't know what's a man to do. What's a man to do?
And Rhys was like, I mean, if you really want to get out from the mountain, you can have the house on top. That's fine.
Do you want real estate? Here, I got plenty of houses.
Yeah. You can have this house that I don't even use. I only used when I captured my bride.
My bride over here. But then Rhys is like, all right, let me sweeten the deal.
And who walks into the room? Aerys. The
dun, dun, dun.
Baron, the Autumn Lord's most likely successor, and the person who was a dick to Mor.
Right. I mean, all of that happened with Mor being betrothed to Aerys because Kerr wanted an alliance with Baron, with the Autumn Court. And it fell through because Mor's like, no. Let me mess this up permanently for all you fuckers. So Rhys knows this is what Kerr wants.
Yeah.
So he brings in Aerys. Like, let's formalize that alliance that you've always wanted.
Well, and what makes me angry is nobody knew. Well, we know that Azriel knew.
Yeah. But very obviously Mor did not know. You knew right away. Know. Yeah.
And Feyre didn't know. Which there's this whole like, oh, we can read each other's thoughts. I'm going to tell you everything. But he's kept this a secret.
He did.
That's kind of...
And the look on Mor's face.
Oh, devastating.
Like how... And part of me is like, what would it have hurt to tell her? But I also love how Kerr's like, I mean, cool. But no, I want to go to Valeris.
Yes. And Mor was pissed about... Like, was like, no, that's off limits.
Right.
No. It ends up, Rhys is like, okay, fine. But we will, like, details to be sorted out later about...
He agrees at a very high level.
Quantity that are allowed in, time periods that they're allowed in.
That all crushed Mor, too.
Yeah.
Where he's just like, okay, we'll figure it out. Yes. And Mor's like, are you kidding me?
Yes. We also hear more about Aerys. So Aerys, we've heard how he was a jerk to Mor. Mm-hmm. And then we see him snickering at his brother getting tortured. And then we see him trying to, I guess, use Feyre as breeding material.
Yep.
And capture her. So 1, 2, 3, not very good first impressions. But we do hear a little bit about, you know, you don't know what you're talking about when, like, Feyre and Mor said things snipey to him.
Yeah.
About the whole Mor situation.
Yeah, it really got you thinking about what his place really is in the Autumn Court. Like, we don't really know a lot about what goes on there at all.
No. But we did find out that the only reason she was like, what about Lucien's, you know, fiance? Mm-hmm. And he's like, I wasn't there. Right. That wasn't me. I refused. That's the only time I've ever refused my dad, and I refused to do that, and I was punished for it.
Right.
And he's like, the only reason Lucien didn't die...
It's because I got word to Tamlin.
I got word to Tamlin. And so she's like, oh, shit. Does Lucien know that?
Yeah, I mean, 'cause it doesn't seem like Lucien does. No. I don't know. But
Tamlin knows. So that's bogus. Tamlin knows that Aerys...
Are you surprised?
I just put that together. That was an honest reaction.
What broke my heart is when he looked at Rhys and he's like, not all of us were so lucky in our friends and our family as you. And that made me think Rhys and Tamlin both kind of talked about their dads. They were kind of trapped under their fathers until their fathers were gone. Yeah. And it makes you wonder with Baron, with what we've heard, how trapped is Aerys? And is he really a part of all of this? Yeah. I really felt for him in this moment. Like, oh, maybe... Like, if Rhys had us put on a show and did all the things that he did and we're totally fine with that, like, is it really that far-fetched that other heirs have to do that?
Yeah. One thing that's interesting, too, is the very submissive mothers had horrible relationships. Like, Tamlin's mom was very submissive to Tamlin's dad.
Rhys's mom wasn't, though.
But Rhys's mom was strong, and that's one of the things. Like, Rhys is blessed with family, and like,
she took in his best friends that are his family. That they're both gone.
So another nod to strong female influences.
I also loved, before we move on from this, I loved how he looked at Mor and was like, I'm surprised you still can't control yourself around him. You have every emotion written on your face. He also told her he never would have touched her. And I found that to be interesting.
So all of the stories about him being this, like, treating women horribly and torturing them.
The way he was talking to her about it, he's like, perhaps one day, now that we're allies, I'll tell you why it all went down the way it did. It also made you think that maybe he was saving her from his dad. Like, that whole interaction, it wasn't him not really caring. He had to show he didn't care so that she wouldn't. Maybe the Autumn Court is really, really bad. I don't know.
I feel like I'm over making excuses for men after Tamlin. I learned my lesson.
I see how you would be traumatized with your opinion of Eris because of Tamlin and how that would poo-poo on it. I'm kind of seeing Eris in this moment through, like, a Reese colored glasses, right? That maybe you have to do what you have to do in situations to get to the greater good.
And there's a lot of politics.
I feel now he could also be completely bullshitting, right, to get his way in here.
But this situation, Alice always said, trust nobody.
Trust nobody, right? He could be bullshitting all of this, but this situation at the Court of Nightmares, knowing the situation with Kerr and everybody else, I don't see a reason for him to be lying here.
Yeah.
So it just makes me interested to see how the rest of this book plays out and what his actions are, because I feel like there's so much more to the story with him.
Yeah. Ugh, I don't know. He's one of the ones that I'm like, I'm okay not knowing his story.
I kind of want to know his story.
See, this is why we just need a lot more books.
I think
happy.
There's a lot of story with the Autumn Court that we have not even, like, touched into.
Yeah, I'm okay skipping the Autumn Court. I'm not a fan.
I love Autumn, though.
Nah. Okay, the bargain that was made with Eris is he's not going to tell Baron about Feyre's powers, so Baron's not going to murder him. Another thing that he gets out of this deal is if and when Baron dies, they will support him as being the next High Lord.
Yeah.
Which, frankly, I don't understand that one. Isn't that a given? Because they say whoever is going to, they'll inherit the power.
Yeah, I didn't really understand that either, unless a High Lord dies under suspicious circumstances. Maybe you have to be supported by the other High Lords or something like that. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because we hear the story about Tamlin and Reese and how they became High Lords and the power just overtook the next strongest heir, So,
well, and I thought the whole point of it was that's why there's so much competition between the siblings is because whoever starts showing the power of being the most powerful, they would inherit. And so that's why they would kill him off. So I don't understand that part.
I don't either. I agree with you. I thought that as soon as...
But saving Feyre is enough, frankly. I just...
Okay. Maybe what he was meaning was I don't just want allies with Kerr. I want to be your allies. I know about the Court of Dreams. I want to be your ally.
Maybe. You're the one that likes him. I don't even want to give him that much thought.
Are you saying I'm reading into this, Marissa?
A little bit. And then Feyre is like, oh, by the way, Kerr, can we have another favor?
Yeah.
And she's like, I need the Ouroboros, if that's how you pronounce it.
The
mirror.
Yeah.
And he just laughs at her face.
He did. He was, and it was a true okay.
Yeah. And he's like, how do you know I have it? And she's like, I just know. Okay.
Can we have it or not?
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, sure. You can have it whenever you want. You just go look in it and you'll go crazy or you'll kill yourself and die. But have at it. Whatever you want.
If you can look in it, that means you get to take it. So go ahead.
Yeah. And so she's like, crap. The bone carver just was messing with us.
Yeah.
So back at the house, Mor is upset. And she is screaming and crying, not just at Reese, but also at Azriel.
She's mad at Az,
because Az knew... Feyre talks about how Az clenches his hand in remembrance of in the meeting when he went to comfort Mor with his hand, and she grabbed her hand away to get away from him.
Yeah. I really felt between the two of them it was your sibling.
Yeah.
Dad didn't have my back, and then you fucking didn't tell me either. We're on the same team here.
Yeah, she was very hurt.
It was a different hurt between the two of them.
She was very mad at Reese. Mm-hmm. And Amren just kind of steps up and is like, babe, we don't have time for this.
She was actually kind of maternal, though, in the way she said it, more than she normally is, right? And I love how she just kind of came in and was like, listen, working with the two of them is not forgiving them. All right. I will hunt them down with you and rip them up to shreds if you want to when this is all over.
But let's use it.
Let's use them. Okay. So calm down more. And then she looks at Rhys and she's like, you handled that very fucking poorly.
Yes. Not great.
You really fucked that up.
Not great news.
She really was like the aunt that came in and was like, okay.
We're never gonna lie to each other ever again.
No, we're best friends.
Forever. And then Cassian's like, hey, did you get the mirror? What mirror are you talking about? And they're like, oh yeah, we didn't tell Amryn we went to the prison.
Fuck.
And Amryn gets pissed. And I just picture, everyone talk!
The whole thing is like, yeah, we're all going to tell each other the truth from now on. Yeah, guys, Tanzin, let's all go, yay!
How is the prison?
You went to the prison? You lied to me? You didn't tell me?
Again?
What did you try and get there? Literally, right when they said it, I really felt, oh, shit.
Yes. And so Amryn goes off, and she's like, why would you do that? What are you doing? How would you even free the Carver to help us? And they're like, well, you did it. And she's like, I'm not talking about it. There's ears everywhere. The wind will blow it over to the prison and they'll realize I was gone. Mm-hmm. And so they put this like shield over. Well, first they kick out Lucien.
They did kick out Lucien. I forgot about that.
First it was like awkward.
We'll talk once, it's
we'll
only
talk
some
later.
of us. We'll talk later. And Lucian's like, all right, I get the picture. I'm leaving. Fine.
And then they like put this shield around everyone. Mm-hmm. And Amryn starts telling the story of her, like, how she imagined herself as something different and she changed every part of her body and, like, all of this stuff. Very intense conversation. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, Elaine is, like, right behind them. And she's like, I didn't hear your heartbeats anymore. Amryn's like in the midst of this crazy conversation and Elaine's just like stops everything. She is really struggling. And then she says more silly stuff.
Oh, lots of what she talked about, young hands withering with age, and it was angry. Yes. I thought of Seinfeld. The sea was angry that day, my friends.
And so then Feyre is like, okay, we'll make a doctor's appointment immediately. The funny thing is, everyone is scared of Amryn, to the point where Amryn finally, like, she's calmed down because Elaine says weird stuff and she's like, okay, I need to take a breath. And she's like, you can call off your dog. And Az is behind her in the shadows with his knife drawn, like, just in case Amryn loses her shit.
But also, this is like his sister. And it's like, they know that that's how much power she has, that he has to be ready.
I feel like Amryn, yes, she's part of the family, but she's like the cranky aunt. She's not like the sibling.
Yes. Oh, Elaine. She sees the healer and she's like, yeah, nothing's wrong with her. And they're like, did you meet her? I mean, she's talking in riddles. And they're like, you're mates. So she looks at Lucien and she's like, maybe he should just sit with her and like talk with her. The mating bond is a bridge between two souls. And he's like, so how do I do that? And she's like, you just like feel it out, man. Yeah, just check out her vibe, dude, and just kind of
hang out with her.
See what happens.
Like this is somebody giving dating advice in this day and age where people don't like communicate to faces. Yeah. So it's kind of like, wait, you go on a date and just look at each other's faces?
Wait, what? Like pick up on her cues. It's like what cues? I don't.
What are you talking about?
So
man?
Then I like he sits with her, and then
well, Feyre says it was the most uncomfortable 30 minutes she's ever had.
Yeah, were they trying to pretend like they couldn't hear?
Mor and Feyre are just like sitting on the side in the same room, like just staring out the window. Yeah. Like having tea. Lucien and Elaine are sitting. This is all open concept.
Yes.
Are like sitting in the living room. And then like this table, Amryn and Nesta are like practicing for.
And they're just staring at each other.
Yeah, they're just, and so like Lucien, like there are 6 people in this room and like on this first date.
I feel like this is the basis of every reality dating TV show that I watch, actually.
Oh, fair.
Where like there's like cameras in the room.
It's everywhere. But it's like with everything, like Nesta's like you hear her growl in the background and stuff. It's like so awkward.
It's like an ADHD hell. Oh, yeah. In all honesty.
And so Lucien like yanks on it a little bit. She's like, "Whoa, what was that?"
leave it to Lucien to kind of have no game at all. It's like right when he sees Elaine, he's like, you're my mate. And then like he has to sit here and like feel things out, and he like yanks on the pot. He's really awkward.
Yeah.
Which means, again, on paper, I do think Lucien and Elaine are pretty good. Like, she's a little awkward too. Yeah. Talking in riddles.
I mean, I really do also think that her reaction to it was just to say more weird stuff.
True. No, because right after that, she just looks at Nesta, and she's like, twin ravens are coming, a white one and a black one. Like, oh, there she is. Hi, Elaine.
Okay. Well, this date's over. The healer didn't work. The mate didn't work.
You just are so sweet.
Why don't you go lay down, sweetie pie? Okay. And so, like, Feyre gets into her day-to-day rhythm where it's like, okay, Cassian in the morning, they do their training. Then right after that, Azriel and her go flying. And this first flying lesson was very interesting because, first of all, she had to build the wings. And so she had, like, emerged like that in front of Lucien that one time, but, like, she hasn't done that and she doesn't do that regularly. So she, like, creates the wings, and Azriel, in his very gentlemanly way, was just kind of like, so I have to touch your wings to, like, make sure that it's built correctly. Can I? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, sorry, in our culture, like, you don't touch other people's wings. It's like a very intimate thing.
Right.
So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And we already know about how Reese and stuff reacts.
Yeah. So it's like, he's like, are you down with it? Was kind of like spotting someone when they're doing squats.
Yes.
I'm going to get real close to you now, okay? Here we go.
But he, like, checks the wings and like, this is really good work.
Pause real quick.
Yeah.
That just made me think of when me and you went to yoga for the first time. And you were in, what's it called, with your legs spread? And the guy's
it's like the happy baby.
Happy baby.
Oh my God.
And this guy's like, I'm going to push your legs down. Is that okay? And you're like, sure. And he puts his body
on my crotch. I was so uncomfortable.
I was uncomfortable.
Okay, but this is like the Feyre and Nesta trauma response. Like, mine, I feel like that was assault.
I mean, and not only that, it was a room of probably 40 people.
Yeah.
It was shoulder to shoulder, 1 inch in between your mat, and he just does that, and your eyes look at me.
Not only that, but he, like, to help me stretch, it, like, rocked.
Yes.
He, like, rocked.
Rock. And then come to find out you were pregnant at this time, I think, weren't you?
He's like, get off my baby.
That was so odd and weird. I don't know if you want to keep that in there. Probable sexual assault.
Okay, so where were we? Okay, Feyre flying.
He was impressed by her wings.
Yes, he was like, you're an artist.
Yes.
And she's like, I just copied it. And he's like, no, this is beautiful work.
I know. I said you're an artist because they're my wings. You actually copied my wings, which I found very interesting that it was Az's wings out of all the guys that she had seen.
His wings are beautiful. But he also said, pick up your wings, you lazy Illyrian. Mm-hmm. He's like, it's considered very lazy. And so the first quote-unquote flying lesson is literally her just picking up her wings and holding it.
Yeah.
Like, okay. And like, the next lesson is wings out, wings in. Wings out, wings in. But then she gets to the point where it's like, okay, we're actually practicing flying. And by practicing flying, I mean she's jumping off a cliff and, like, hitting trees. That's all she's doing.
Oh, yeah. Cannot estimate, like, I just seriously picture, like, a cartoon and her, like, binging between tree after tree after tree after tree.
And Azriel is so funny because he has such a dry sense of humor. Mm-hmm. So it's like she, like, banks into a tree, and then the next time she, like, swerves and misses the tree, but then, like, hits another tree. And he's like, no, that was a good bank. And she's like, yeah, but I banked into a tree. And he's like, yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. But the first part, you did good.
Yeah. Oh, honey. So Feyre's getting very discouraged.
Yeah.
And he's like, every hour counts. Just keep practicing. And she's like, there's no way I'm going to be able to fight in the Illyrian army. And he's like, Well, yeah.
Yeah, no shit.
We've been training since birth. Funny that you human think it takes 6 months.
You could just learn, like, in a couple weeks.
Yes. And she's like, man, that sucks. I really wanted to fly with you guys. And he's like, yeah, we're really cool.
But that's when he was saying, like you were saying, the training. He's like, every day, every hour matters.
And that's when we hear about Nephel.
Oh, I loved this story.
Yes. So Nephel is the war scribe, was it? Or some?
Yeah, for
Drakon.
So their wings have feathers.
Yes.
Right?
But her wings were abnormally small, and one of them was actually disfigured. So she never got to fly and fight in that army, right? But we finally, with Azriel's story, we hear about like why everybody thinks Miriam and Drakon drowned at the end. And so what happened was the army was following them. They were fleeing away, Drakon and Miriam and everything. So they had nowhere to run. They got to this lake. All of Drakon's army used their powers to create like the wind from their wings to create like this, like almost crossing, like Moses.
It was very Moses, yeah.
Very Moses. And so everybody flees.
So that all the humans could get through.
Everyone flees. And it gets to a point where at one point Miriam falls behind. She falls, like the army's coming up on her. Drakon doesn't know this. He's flying and helping people across and everything like that. And he, like the wind power is starting to break.
Right.
And he's like, okay, everybody's pretty much out. We've just got to close the lake and everybody will drown.
Right.
Well, Nephel, who is like best friends with Miriam, knew that she was back there. And so she went back and she picked up Miriam, who is like deathly wounded.
Right.
And she picks her up and just starts flying. And the big thing here is, one, like she can't really fly.
Right.
Two, the passage is getting narrower and narrower as like the magic is flowing out. And so it's just closing in on them slowly. And finally, it gets to the point where she goes, she doesn't falter once. She's carrying another human.
Right.
And she gets out just in the nick of time as the ocean closes and Miriam is saved.
Right.
And the big thing was her wings, if her wings had been any bigger, it would have hit the water and they would have died. Mm-hmm. If she could have flapped higher, she wouldn't have been able to go around the craters and everything. And so her body was perfectly made for that run.
Right.
And actually, when Rhys came and visited them, he talked about how he found out this story that first time they visited and call it the Nephil philosophy.
That every moment counts. And you never know. What was the Nephil philosophy? Like, you never know when your what was it?
Biggest weakness.
What we think to be our greatest weaknesses can sometimes be our biggest strength. And that the most unlikely person can alter the course of history.
Which is so, like, that's Feyre's story.
Exactly.
She was just a lowly human. Poor human.
Saved the entire
world.
Well, Printhia.
I mean, that's basically the world. I love that story. And Feyre's like, okay, let me jump off this cliff again.
Boom, hit the ground.
You got me. Go Az. He's a good coach.
He is.
Okay, so this is her day-to-day life.
Well, in the afternoon, she goes to the library.
Yeah.
Right? To research.
Nesta.
With Nesta.
So she actually is showing Nesta the library. So she gave her a little bit of context of the people that are there. Mm-hmm. So they walk in and they start walking down to where their groupings of books are.
Right.
And behind them, they hear, like, we thought we were gonna have to come get you, but you came to us. And they're like,
you have such an intimidating delivery. Is
that not creepy?
No.
Is that not scary?
Not at all.
Okay, imagine I said it scarier. So they turn around and there are two high-burned soldiers.
Right.
And they're in like the gray, like tunic with the bone-colored writing. That's kind of how she always describes their like outfits.
Very gray, yeah.
But the emblems on it are what?
Ravens.
So.
And one has dark hair and one has light hair.
Ding, ding, ding. Elaine's not crazy.
Elaine might not be as crazy as we think.
She may have been on it.
Yep.
And so they're basically like, I'm going to murder you.
Well, they were focused directly on Nesta, not on Feyre.
Yes.
Which was different right away. And then they said to her, she took something from the cauldron and the king wants it back.
Yeah. And they were just like, Feyre, you're a happy accident, so we'll
take you too, though.
We'll kidnap you, and everybody's going to be so happy.
Dude, we are so getting a promotion.
Yes. And Feyre was like, oh, crud.
Yeah.
And she's just like, Nesta, follow me. She grabs her hand, and they just start spiraling down the staircase, lower and lower. And we know the bottom of the library.
Well, Rhys had told her when he took her to the library before that something lives in the bottom, and Cassian saw it one time and will not talk of it, has not come back to the library since, was pale, ghost white. And this is like the general of the Illyrian army, right? Like he is pretty much a badass and not afraid of anything, but it scared the shit out of Cassian. And she's just like, Nesta, come on, let's go. We're going to run all the way down to the bottom.
And again, with the villain monologues.
Yeah.
And so the funny thing is they start talking again about, oh, the queen is very angry with you because of what you took. What you took made the cauldron so mad, it punished the next one.
Yeah.
So we find out that the queen that went into the cauldron first, which was the one that treasured beauty and everything like that.
Right.
She went into the cauldron and got dumped out. And so what the cauldron took from her is what she prized the most, which was her beauty.
Right. Which, again, going back, Feyre's going, Elaine said, I saw hands withered with age and blah, 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 blah. So, like, she's starting to connect the stuff that, again, the villain monologue.
Yes.
Why are they even telling her this?
Because
they're so cocky.
It's so good for literature.
It is. It's very good for literature.
I love it. And so they get cocky. And basically, Feyre gets to a point where she says, Nesta, you run. And she pushes the bookcases behind Nesta so that way they can't follow.
Right.
And then she runs. So again, her and Rhys with the self-sacrificing.
Right.
But to be honest, Nesta hasn't been training with Cassian, so...
She hasn't. She's a little weak. So
Yes.
Feyre's like, I got this. She keeps running down to the bottom of that library.
Go run and get help if you can make it a mile.
Yeah.
So she's like going further and further and just in blackness. And she's like, at some point, something in here is going to be that monster. And she's just like, where are you? Where are you? And like, please help me. Where are you? Like, and just trying to go in the darkest corner of this
the Ravens,
library.
The Ravens can't find her right now.
No, and the Ravens are just like listening. And they're like, who is she talking to?
Yeah.
Is she crazy?
Well,
Like,
they go, who are you talking to, High Lady?
yes.
And that's when the Braxis goes, you're a High Lady? And
Yes.
she feels this, like...
It's just intense darkness. And
behind her, too.
Yeah.
Like, how creepy.
Yes.
Behind you? Oh.
Yes. And she's like, can you please help me? I really need some help. And he's like, what will you give me for this? And she's like...
Your voice.
I mean, that's better than the Raven voice.
True story.
Okay.
You're improving.
So that's how I pictured it in my head. That's how I read it out loud to myself. That's why I can't do audiobooks. It'll totally ruin my voice.
What would you have for me, my dear?
And he's like, I'll save you if you send somebody down to hang out. And she's like, to eat? And he's like, no, just to tell me of life.
I want a friend.
Yes.
I was like, aw.
Yeah, well, and it's very interesting that he was like, I need somebody to tell me what's going on because I just stay in this back corner of the cellar. And then the bone carver was like, I want the mirror to look out at life.
Yeah.
Like, both of these guys are like in their little corner.
I know.
But anyway, she's like, okay, as long as you're not going to eat them, cool. They'll tell you a story and head out.
Deal.
And he's like, you should probably close your eyes. And she's like, deal. Bet.
First he goes, do you want me to kill them? And she's like, yeah. That was kind of, yeah. However you want to do it, but get it done.
She closes her eyes. He goes and starts murdering people. She runs out and boom, on the floor is Cassian.
Yeah.
And he sees the monster of nightmares.
Okay.
So Cassian sees it. His face gets all green again like he's about to puke, but he's like, I can't do that in front of my High Lady.
And he's like, I'm taking you away. Let's go.
Yes. And so he takes her away right as Rhys comes down. He's like, you're okay. Okay, perfect. And you can feel his rage and anger and everything like that. And he's like, I got this, babe.
Yeah.
And you still hear, like, the screaming and everything like that. And then all of a sudden, it just goes, like, silent.
Yeah.
And so we found out that Rhys grabbed as much information as he wanted or could before his rage got so intense that he murdered them the rest of the way.
Yeah.
He didn't wait for Azrael to use the truth teller on them to get all the information. He's like, 1, 2, 3, that's fine.
Well, and then even when they come out and they're talking about it after, it's like the only thing that's bloody is his hands. Like, he shielded his suit, his shoes, his hair, so that they wouldn't get messy, but he wanted to, like,
feel the blood on his hands.
Ooh, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little hot.
Yeah.
It was a little hot.
See, so again with the bad boy stuff, because to me I was like, that's a lot. You might need to talk to somebody about this.
It's your book boyfriends can be different than real life, okay? Red flags in real life are green flags in books, okay?
I don't know if I agree with that.
I don't need to explain myself to you, okay?
Okay. So they get home and they say, oh, Elaine, we're sorry we thought you were wacky.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about all these visions you're having?
Oh, you saw the queen with the withered hands, and we found out from the ravens on their villain monologue that that queen was made old. You saw the twin ravens coming. What else have you seen?
Yeah.
And she said the sixth queen might come, the one who was cursed, the queen with the feathers of flame. And they were like, wait a minute, the golden queen told us the sixth queen wasn't sick.
Yeah.
Who is the sixth queen? And we find out her name's Vasa. I think I forget who knew and told her story. But Az, I believe, confirms that they sold her to a sorcerer lord that makes her a firebird by day and a woman by night. And he's in this like lake, and it's a deep ancient forest, and he has other people. So like, okay, we got to go get her. And who volunteers to go?
Lucien. Which makes sense because Lucian's the only one that isn't needed right there.
Honestly, as soon as he said, I'll go, I was like, perfect opportunity for him to like prove himself that he's with them, but also be doing something that is important, that is within his skill set. This is what he does anyway. So it's like, it's a perfect scenario. But
I will say, I thought it was interesting that Azrael was the one that was like, the only one that like was asking her about it. So they're like, oh, Elaine's a seer, like light bulb, and Azrael was the one that like paused and was like asking her questions about it.
He's the one who said she's a seer too.
Yeah,
he was like, everybody stop, like he knew. Well, she responds to him though.
Yeah, well, they were all like saying, "Oh, she's crazy," while he was asking her back, like, "Well, what queen? Oh, the queen that turned old?" And she's like, "No, there's another queen," and he's like, have we met this queen? Like, he's just, like, tiptoeing to
She's
her.
like, the ones with feathers of flame.
Yeah.
The one, like,
and so, finally, him being able to sequence it, and it makes sense because if she's a seer, this is a power that she's learning how to interpret.
Right.
So, it makes sense she just sees flashes, and she's not able to put the picture together without somebody helping her along.
Okay, now, she was kind of like tick-tock, tick-tock.
Yeah.
In Hunger Games, but now I'm going to spoil it. It was a clock! Mama!
She was right. She wasn't crazy.
She wasn't crazy. She was just saying it a different way.
She didn't know how to communicate it.
What a cool power to get from the cauldron, too. Like, I can understand how it'd be really weird.
I would hate that power. I would hate that power.
I can feel the anxiety coming off of you just thinking about having that power.
That power sucks, man.
To, like, know what's coming.
I want a friend with that power. I don't want that power.
Okay. How cool is it to have a seer on your team? Just like it's cool to have a shadow slinger, right?
So now this is when I say, I don't want to be Elaine anymore.
Oh, that is like pinging right on your like triggers there.
Yes.
Yeah. How can you be an empath and a seer?
You can't.
You can't.
Okay. So now we know Elaine isn't crazy.
All the way crazy. There's a method to the madness. She's still a little bit crazy.
So let's go back down to our plan bullet points.
Okay.
Plan 1, get some help. So Lucien is going to the continent to find this Queen Vasa, and fingers crossed, she's been stuck in this lake for a while. Hopefully she still has an army.
Maybe an army, but she would also know what's going on with the other queens. Like, get the rest of that story, too.
Yeah. Well, and she might be able, as a human, to say, hey, we shouldn't let them just kill us.
I mean, they put her away there for some reason. They sold her to the Sorcerer Lord for a reason.
Yes. 2, the invitations have gone out
To the High Lords.
The High Lords are still negotiating, not answering, like...
Not that date, not that place.
Yes.
They used to always meet under the mountain. They ain't going back there.
Baron hasn't responded.
Yeah.
Tamlin hasn't responded.
Tarquin has also not responded.
Tarquin has also. But, I mean, he also wants them dead on sight.
There's blood rubies involved, so he might just be waiting for everyone else to figure it out on the text chain.
Okay. Dark Bringers by Kerr. They have an agreement. Mm-hmm. Not the best circumstances, but we'll worry about it after the war if we survive.
Right.
Everybody's researching. Nesta is practicing to
put the wall back together.
Fix the wall.
And we're trying to research to figure out how we can patch the wall.
Yes. In that 2-3 week period, we got a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Feyre's trying to fly. Cassian's trying to get Nesta to train. She's not buying it.
Nope. So,
Mor and Rhys got in a big fight, and then they made up.
Did they, though?
Kinda.
I think she's more of the, I know it makes sense, but I'm still not talking to you.
I mean, I don't really blame her.
No.
In all honesty.
Okay, so favorite part of this section.
I have a conspiracy theory about Amren, and I think that story... Can I tell you my conspiracy theory about...
Yes. Hear it.
Okay, so in this... They ask her more about the prison. She said she made herself mortal, in their terms of mortality, so she could feel regret and mourning and pain. She was never supposed to question those things or be curious. Those were not feelings she was supposed to have. 2 things that she says about the day that she left her, wherever she's from, and came here. She says... That day, her brothers and sisters fled from a rip upon order of their ruler. They had just laid waste to 2 twin cities, smut them wholly, and she's not supposed to be curious or want things, and she was curious and went through. And they asked, "What are you?" She said, "A messenger, a soldier assassin for a wrathful god who ruled a young world." I think Amren is an archangel.
A fallen archangel.
Right? Because Old Testament God, all right, now I haven't read the Bible in a very long time, but my Catholic upbringing, Old Testament God was a wrathful, vengeful God, right? New Testament God went to therapy, right? And is a little more gentle and all of that, but a wrathful God who ruled a young world. She was a messenger, a soldier, assassin. I think she was an archangel, and there was a rip, and she fell. I mean, that's a tirade, that's a rant, but we're gonna come back to this theory too.
Yes.
But that is I can't unthink that now.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's such a...
It makes sense, doesn't it?
I love it. That's so cool. I love it. I think the Nephil philosophy was my favorite, especially thinking about going into war. I feel like it's foreshadowing a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like now we're seeing Elaine, who is seen as weak. Now she's coming into her own. Feyre had her whole story of coming into her own, finding their strength.
And now is doing it as High Lady,
yes.
Right? Totally different vibe from her. And then Nesta, we know something's brewing. Yeah. We don't know what. There's something huge. I agree with you. Also, the way that whole story was written. I mean, I saw the movie scene in my mind. Yes. Underdog, ultimate underdog type of thing.
And they went in the book, they talk about how now in that new society, that equitable society.
With humans and Fae.
Yes. They have a quote-unquote race every year on the anniversary.
Oh, I forgot about this.
And Nephil and her lover. I love how, those 2 sit up there and they actually crown the winner.
I know. I love that. Okay. Thank you for joining us as we talked about A Court of Wings and Ruin. Please follow High Tales Lit Sisters on Instagram, YouTube, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for talking High Tales with your favorite Lit Sisters.
Heyo.
Bye.